I have a very simple kind of sentiment to espouse here. I've never seen any other community online have this sentiment, except for the kind of manga people, the people who are very interested in manga. Um, like when you normally in fiction, you have different writers exchange things, and a different writer will write this story, a different writer will write that story. It's just how it goes. The plot changes hands from one person to another. It tends to be that way, and it's been that way for Dragon Ball too. But the fans of Dragon Ball have this pseudo kind of parasocial relationship with Toriyama, and I find it weird. I find it very weird, and I figured this was as good as time as any to kind of discuss it since he's dead. Uh, Rip, rest in peace to him. Loved Dragon Ball, so I guess it's unfortunate, but I don't think it's the end of the world or even end of Dragon Ball, and a lot of people I think are just going to tune out from Dragon Ball. You have this vocal, I would say majority online, where, they're only watching this because it's fitting some puritanical canon. I've never viewed fiction in a very binary, it's good or it's bad because whatever person writes it. I'm a Digimon fan, I'm a Yu-Gi-Oh fan, I like Marvel, I like God of War. I mean, in these series have exchanged writers from one story to another, and, for the most part, people don't care. You'll have one story where X person writes for, and then you have another writer who writes for, and in Marvel, you're just kind of like, well, I guess it is what it is. 4 is written by a different person this time. And you move on with your life. But for these, kind of infamous anime manga series, you'll have, a movie or an OVA or a video game, which is wrote by a different person or, has a different creative team on it for obvious reasons. Toriyama, Kishimoto, they're not animators, they're not video game designers, right? And, they'll have different staff. And this just offends, the fans for whatever reason. I don't get it myself. It seems weird to me to have this kind of parasocial relationship with the creator where you're intrinsically invested in what he's saying. And I mean, I'm not trying to say that, like, Stan Lee doesn't matter or something, or, Kazuki Takahashi doesn't matter, or whatever creator. I'm just saying, in the grand scheme of Dragon Ball, I think people put too much credit on Toriyama's name. Beyond the original manga and Jacko, he doesn't directly write anything. The new Daima project was directly advertised as having more involvement than what was previously done in, Dragon Ball Super Broly or whatever. And so it's like, there's a direct precedent for him not being that involved. I'm not trying to say he was like a nobody. Obviously, he created Goku, Piccolo, Vegeta, so on and so forth. But when you look at Dragon Ball as a grand, media franchise, he really hasn't done much for it. There's Dragon Ball Heroes, there's a lot of OVAs, the one with Chilled, the one with Hachi Jack, there's the DBZ movies, the Dragon Ball movies, the anime, the video games, Xenoverse, Budokai Tenkaichi, and it's like, he hasn't done that much for the franchise. Which isn't to say, he isn't an integral part, he created a lot of the core characters. But I'm saying, you look at the projects he's worked on in Dragon Ball and the ones he hasn't, and there's less that he's worked on than that he has worked on. And I guess this is gonna get some flack from a lot of people who are diehards for Toriyama. And it's like, I'm not saying he doesn't matter. I'm not saying his work is shit. If anything, a lot of people have liked his characters that he's created. And I do too. I've watched Dragon Ball. I've played Dragon Ball my whole life. So I just don't get this hyperfixation on, who writes it, who doesn't. I'm a fan of many things that don't abide by the principle of whatever creator always has to work on it. I love Batman. I watch DCAU Batman, and the same day I'll watch a video on Arkham Batman or something like that. It doesn't matter to me who writes what. What matters to me is the story's good. I like it. It's visually appealing. The action's fun. If it fits some purity test of, who writes it, I guess good job. If Bob Kane and Bill Finger write it, good for them, I guess. But ultimately, I'm not watching whatever story because a random person I never met is working on it. That doesn't matter to me. If I have a friend and he's telling me he works on it, and he works on this installment, he works on this thing, maybe I'll be interested. But in a grand scope of it, I don't really care that much if X person's involved or not. It's why I never really hated GT as principle. It's like, GT is just a sequel. It's not some, like, grand shame on the Dragon Ball legacy because Toriyama didn't write it. Toriyama didn't write a lot of segments in Super. He didn't write a lot of characters in Super. They won't tell you that, but the fans have been, the fans online in the internet sphere, they tend to have an agenda on whatever the fuck. You go for Yu-Gi-Oh!, you have the meta fans, they want to only like meta Yu-Gi-Oh! And anything classic shit. You got God of War fans where they treat the game series like it's a literal adaptation of Greek mythology, like a one-to-one direct. You have Dragon Ball fans who hate everything Dragon Ball except the original manga and, I guess, Super. Even though Super has characters not made by Toriyama in it, Granola was directly made by Toyotaro, but we don't talk about that. So, I guess my larger point is, I've never understood this, connection. I've watched tons of series that don't have the original creator involved, as have a lot of other groups outside of the kind of mainstream manga space.